The biggest investing misunderstanding of the last 20 years, if not a generation. It's crazy. All right, so we're going to read my man Michael Leibowitz. Big fan of this guy. I'm not even sure who does he manage money? This is such a good article. 720 global partner with real investment advice. All right, cool. I'm a big fan of real investment advice. Right on. All right. So I want to share you something here. All right, so we're going to talk about in July 2007, the Sowood Capital closed its doors and was forced to abruptly unwind a highly leveraged book of illiquid mortgages. That should mean something to you if you're at all knowledgeable of the investment markets and how they passed over the last 20 years. Despite ultimately accruing at $1.6 billion in fund losses, the investments were characterized by Standard & Poor's as neither, wow, hey, why do you all jump up when I'm doing a video? Paul was nowhere to be found until I started talking. I think he thinks I'm talking to Charlotte. Standard & Poor's characterized it as neither uncommon or excessively risky. Instead, Sowood's mistake was the extensive use of leverage. Shocking, that leverage. The glitch was a lack of cash or liquid assets to post as margin when it's demanded by those lending to it. A liquidity reserve would have allowed it to post collateral and avoid selling illiquid assets in an illiquid market. Illiquid assets in an illiquid market. Why was it illiquid? All right, so although problems for Sowood began in spring of 2007 as the subprime market began to unwind, why? What caused this? There was little signs that it took steps to manage its liquidity risk. Ultimately, the fund's demise happened over a brief 5 business days. All right, so we have an illiquid market, all right? And Michael gets it. He gets it. He's not going to say it explicitly here, but he gets it. An illiquid market in a subprime market that began to unwind. Why? What caused that? What caused it? So now we fast forward in 2008 when Bernanke was still unaware of an economic recession and was downplaying the effects of the subprime mortgage market. Market stability following the March 2008 Bear Stearns JP Morgan bailout. I still can't believe I can't. Just it infuriates me that we bailed these guys out. Was a short-lived facade. Chaos erupted in August when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which held $1.2 trillion in high-quality liquid mortgages on a heavily leveraged basis, were forced to recognize deterioration in the value of their assets. What? Forced to recognize deterioration in the value of their assets. Why would there be deterioration of high-quality liquid mortgages? Because of the combination of excessive leverage and eroding liquidity, they were required to raise money to shore up their capital. Why was the eroding liquidity? Most of this came from the government as they were placed in conservatorship by the regulator. Yeah, they're going to kiss my butt. Other leverage holders of mortgage-related bonds, such as the world's largest banks and several international insurance companies, came under similar duress. From August 2008 to March 2009, the threat of bank and corporate defaults grew as asset real estate values continued to fall. The events created an erosion of trust, and among banks and investors, liquidity was hard to find in nearly all the assets. Okay, so all these firms didn't have enough cash to cover their bets. But there's something else going on here. What caused this to happen? He's downplaying it here. All right. During the crisis, liquidity holes were commonplace, even in the most liquid and least risky assets. In a unique aberration, some high-quality assets fell more in price than lower-quality assets as investors sold anything with a bid. So a bid is someone, I will bid to buy something from you. You're asking. I will sell this to you for X. You're going to bid. You will buy it from me at Y, and we negotiate a deal there. However, if there's no bid, I can ask whatever I want, but until someone's willing to pony up money to buy it from me, the price goes to zero. Now I'm telling you, I'm gonna hit you with a freaking grand slam home run 2x6 across the head here, because no one talks about this, and if they don't talk about this, they're missing what caused the freaking insanity in the market. And then you gotta say, okay, if we miss this, what are we mixing next? What are we going to miss next? Uncertainty and loss of liquidity became so problematic that many risky assets became structurally closed. No bid existed for sellers to entertain. Those in distress had nothing to do but to sell high-quality assets aggressively and indiscriminately. They needed to raise cash. All right, so the point being is, what caused all that? Well, it was called mark-to-market accounting. All right, mark-to-market accounting. And if you look at my channel from the past, I said how Barney Frank saved capitalism. I've also done a video on how FDR saved capitalism too, by the way. Anyway, so just real quick, a brief synopsis. In the mid-30s, we thought Russia was the land of milk and honey. We had all kinds of American workers literally going to Russia to work in their factories because they were lied to by New York Times, Walter Duranty, and all these freaking socialist commies. They were selling us a freaking bad lies and whatnot. So people are saying, well, America's in depression. No one's got jobs. I'm going to move to Russia where everything is moving seamlessly. Swimmingly, and they were literally got killed. They were executed later on by the Russian commies. So this happens. New York Times is still here, and yet Grandma Jones, who worked at a Ford plant in Detroit and now is sitting in Russia, is dead. New York Times doesn't care. Point being is FDR saw this huge frustration with quote capitalism unquote. And he said, we better do something or else the pitchforks are coming. And it won't just be a New Deal. It's going to be a Bolshevik revolution. And they're going to go after me, FDR. So he saved capitalism. Barney Frank did the same in 2009 when he held, because he was chairman of he wasn't House Ways and Means, I think the Finance Committee, the House Finance Committee. And he called a meeting to discuss mark-to-market accounting, and that began the demise of mark-to-market accounting. I don't think it's ever come back. It might be. I don't think so. I hope not. Anyway, the interesting thing is, no one talked about that till that point. There's no talk about mark-to-market accounting. No one talked about it. At least I'm aware of. I mean, I'm sure there's some guy. And where did I learn this from? From Brian Westbury. You see what I'm saying? That's why I love Brian Westbury, because he was the only one talking about it at this point. No one else would talk about it. I follow economists. I read the Wall Street Journal, all that stuff. I don't read The Economist. I follow economists in the plural because they're supposed to know all this stuff. Not a freaking damn one knowed anything about mark-to-market accounting. Brian Westbury is the only one saying anything about it, at least that I read. Now, you say some other guy, sure, fine. You know who else knew about mark-to-market accounting? Oh, the Japanese knew about mark-to-market accounting. They had the same thing. And if you read Richard Kuh's book, The Holy Grail of Macroeconomics, he talks about that. I was stunned when I read that book. I said, holy crap, the same thing happened in Japan. And yet we didn't learn. So the question is, what do we don't know now? I don't know. But what the idea that the market, we had all these assets were rated highly. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, those are governments. They're not government entities, GSEs, government-sponsored entities, but still, they basically had the AAA rating, and all of a sudden, kaput. They should have gone bankrupt and just shut them down, but they never will do that. Franklin Raines, Jamie Gorelick, all kinds of Republican Congress people made bank, millions of dollars on holding Freddie Mac options and stocks. It's insane, man. The rich got rich and everybody else got screwed, but we bailed out J.P. Morgan, Bear Stearns. We didn't bail out Lehman Brothers. But it wasn't because Lehman Brothers. It wasn't because of the real estate crisis. It was because of mark-to-market accounting. That's what caused this stuff. Because what happened is, once your asset prices drop below a certain threshold, if you're a pension, a government entity, if you're an insurance company, you can't hold junk stuff. And if it drops below a certain price, you have to, by your charter, you have to get rid of it. You have to. So all of a sudden, because mark-to-market accounting is saying, we got to price these as they are today. And you're like, man, they're trading at 75 cents a dollar. And the insurance company charter says you got to liquidate it. So all these companies are trying to liquidate their assets. I got to go inside. It's starting to rain. Well, guess what? If you have a massive amount of supply and no demand, i.e. demand is the bid, guess what happens? The price keeps falling and falling and falling. The only person who can buy is the person who has the cash, i.e. in this case, Warren Buffett or the federal government. They didn't have the cash, but they were able to raise it through the taxing authority. Not to know this, and Mike Leibowitz knows this, and he just didn't say necessarily in this article, but he knows this. But any investment guru type who doesn't talk about this doesn't know his head from the hole in the ground. So the question is, what do we not know that could come back to bite you in the butt? Now, given that, what works against these things? Cash, cash, cash. Ginnie Mae. Did Ginnie Mae get tumbled? Nope. Will it? Maybe. I don't know. Did it? Nope. Because it's a government bond. Anyway, the point being, when people start saying, I need to get some interest on my money, should I go to floating rate bonds? Should I go here? I'm like, look, dude, I don't know what you should do. I'm just saying, have you not learned anything from the past? Cash is king when things go south. Things go south for whatever reason we can't anticipate. Prepare, because it will happen again. They're all going to be like, how did we not know that? Well, no one will say that because everyone will say, I knew it. No, you didn't. Prepare for the worst and pray for the best. I will see you.